Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast, episode number 53. I'm so excited to have you here with me today. I am interviewing Katie Browner today. We talk all things business. We talk about some LGBTQ community things. We talk about having a job while having a business. This is such a good interview. I'm so excited to share it with you. Let's get right to it, guys. I don't want to miss a moment. I spent years building my interior design business, trying to do all the things. The marketing, the networking, the free content, spending thousands of dollars on training and education, only to see minimal growth. After years of frustration, I finally started to ask, what am I missing? I had the systems in place for powerful growth. I had amazing clients. I had determination, drive, and commitment to spare. And yet, I wasn't seeing the success I desired. What if business is not about the doing? What if building a powerful business requires both powerful systems and something else, something deeper? I'm Amy Van Meel, and I'm on a journey to discover that something else. If you are ready to build a powerful business and do it knowing that your success is inevitable, join me as I share both the powerful systems I know work and my lessons and revelations as I discover that something deeper. Welcome, Changemaker, to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. Well, hey there, Changemakers. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. It's Amy here, and I'm super excited because today I am joined by somebody who's become a very dear friend of mine, Katie Browner. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you very much for having me.
So Katie and I are actually hanging out together in Ottawa, Canada. I mentioned last week that I am in Ottawa for a work trip with that job that I've been talking about a little bit. So Katie and I both are here, and we're having such a fun time and just some amazing experiences. So I thought it was a perfect opportunity to sit down with Katie because Katie has some really cool business stories that I wanted to share with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a perfect time for it.
Mm-hmm.
The weather here has been cold, so I'm glad to spend a little bit of it inside.
Yeah, we're tucked into my hotel room this morning, so if it sounds a little echoey, like I said last week, that's why, because, I don't have all my sound baffles like I normally do. But yeah, we're hanging out inside this morning. We're both sort of fresh off our cup of coffee. Our eyes aren't fully open yet, but thanks for hanging out with us today.
Yeah.
So Katie has, Katie started a store about a month ago, and because we work together, we get to share some of the successes that we have, not just at work, but also in our own lives. And so that was one of the reasons that I brought her in today. But Katie's actually been doing some business for a while. So can you tell us a little bit more about everything you've done, Katie?
Yeah, absolutely. So about 4 years ago, I started a kind of one-person show of a video game development studio called New S Games, where I do really story-driven content aimed at the queer community that has very much a sort of Japanese anime dating game sort of vibe to it.
Okay.
And really a lot of those stories are currently aimed at like straight white dudes, and there was, or women, straight white women as well. And there's just so many more stories out there that can be told. And that's the gaps that I'm trying to fill, I suppose.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Katie and I have very different experiences in the world, which makes our conversations actually really quite interesting. We come from things on a very different way. And so I think we get to learn a lot from each other, from like just our thoughts and our opinions. So I'm super curious about this. I'm curious about the gap. I mean, y'all know me. I'm so vanilla. Video games are not my jam. And so I'm fascinated by the whole idea that that there even is a gap. I kind of, not knowing anything about it, I kind of assume that like it sort of applied to everybody. But so you're saying that there's a gap for people that have different tastes, different viewpoints on life, different,
Absolutely. I mean, when you're playing a game that primarily centers around romantic kind of plot lines, it's nice to be able to see your own life and your own experiences in that game, where you're not forced to be, through the narrative, if it's a first-person narrative, a lot of the time you're kind of forced into the viewpoint of someone that has a very different kind of experience in life than perhaps you do. So it's nice to be able to provide something for people that don't have that I can show themselves in a game and allow them to have a role play experience that applies to them and is just a little bit more personal and more relatable.
Yeah.
And it means that the story itself is going to have far more impact on them and just be more enjoyable, I think.
Very cool. So the games traditionally have been focused on like heterosexual men and women. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then when you say queer, is this because we have like the whole LGBTQ plus, community? Does it appeal to the whole group? Is there sort of a section within there, or like how does that work? How does the narrative work within that?
I mean, I try and make as diverse a character kind of group as I can. I want to say primarily things so far have been focused on women, just because there is a lot less for women than there is currently for men. That said, it is something that's going to be happening with my next couple of releases, with more storylines aimed at men or non-binary people. So there is going to be a bit more of that to come as well.
Cool. I find conversations, I know like we're going to get a bit more into the business of things, but I find that conversations about gender identification and sexuality are so fascinating to me. I don't talk about it often on the podcast, again, because like we're mostly focused on business and inner growth, but we had a fascinating conversation earlier this week, just, that like I said, y'all, I'm so vanilla. And I find it fascinating, even when I was growing up, I don't know how I had the clarity around it, but that I grew up in a small town in rural Manitoba, and people were kind of like poo-pooed, even people who were just gay, like normal versions of gay, for however that comes across. And I remember people talking about the fact, like, why would they decide to be gay? And even as a teenager, and I said this to you earlier this week, like, I never ever remembered making a decision to be straight. I never ever remembered thinking like, oh, I think I'm going to be interested in men. That was never something that came up for me. So it made just as much sense to me that if that was never a decision that I made, then probably if someone was, if it was a woman interested in another woman, then they probably didn't make that decision actively. It's just what they're naturally attracted to. But it opens up, I think I've mentioned before, my brother-in-law on the podcast, that his journey has been a bit different, and he was trying to explain to me things like transgender, and I'm like, I don't understand. And like, it's so interesting to me to hear different perspectives, because it's so, like, I'm super curious. And I mean, we don't interview a lot of people on here. And so I ask a ton of questions whenever I meet anybody. And Katie's definitely been really good to share this week as well. But I'm so curious about people, and I just, maybe you can, like, so I always preface questions, like, before I ever ask a question, like, if this is none of my business, please say so. And what I find so fascinating about, like, the whole LGBTQ community is that most people are pretty open about it. Like, I think that, like, last week I was talking about that we need to stand together more. We need to raise each other up more. We need to, stop trying to look at each other as competition, and, like, one person's wrong is, that we discount somebody because of it. So no matter how you feel about how someone like lives their life, I think we can lean more into the curiosity. And I would love, like, can you touch on that a little bit? Just like, are there questions that are appropriate for people to ask? Are there, like, conversations like this? Because I mean, we're talking about, like, the games that you create are for a totally different group of people than typically that I'm hanging out with, which is, not necessarily because I've chosen not to, but they just haven't been in my circle of people around. Are people mostly open to questions about that? I mean,
yeah, I definitely think so. And I think part of the reason why LGBTQ people are open to questions is because they get the wrong kind of questions on a regular basis. Which can be things like, for example, for trans people, asking about their genitalia is not a good idea to ask someone. Asking a gay person how they have sex is also not particularly a question that is good to lead with. So when someone does express polite, genuine, like, curiosity, and they demonstrate that, like, hey, yeah, these people aren't in my usual social circle, just purely out of circumstance. I would love to know a bit more. Do you mind? Then, yeah, a lot more times, often than not, people are comfortable with that. And I think that is great. And I think it goes to show kind of what you were saying with the bringing communities together and learning more about each other. I think it's only a good thing.
I do think that the more we get to know one another, and this is on all sides, we've had some somewhat heated, like, political type conversations.
They've been a bit spicy, yeah.
And we come at it from different sides. But I always feel that when you can have an open conversation, that it benefits everybody. And something that, I've talked about this before, something that I've been working on is to find a way that I can have an intelligent conversation, express my opinions, but do so in a way that is respectful of the other people, and that I also don't get so emotionally invested in that I, like, have a total meltdown, right? And so it's actually, this week has been really fun for me, because in a way I've gotten to really, like, practice that and flex that muscle a little bit, and, like, okay, how can I express the way I think or the way I feel, or just, thoughts that I have, in a way that's respectful of other people's opinions, but also maybe opens the door for more conversation. And so, sexuality and gender identification is big right now. It's, like, all over.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. There's certain questions that are just not anybody's business. And if you find so here's my filter. If you find yourself in a situation like this where you meet someone, you're like, oh, I'm, like, really fascinated. I always think, if someone were to ask me the question that I may about to ask, how would I feel about it? So if somebody were to ask me, like, how do you have sex? I'd be like, however I want to. Like,
yeah.
That's not, for me, that's not a topic that's open for conversation. I know there are some people who are very open about that conversation, but they make me uncomfortable because I wouldn't want to talk about that with someone else. But I'm fascinated by the idea of, like, how do you know? Like I said, I never decided to be a heterosexual female. That was just who I was.
Yeah.
And so it's strange to me when people think something different.
Absolutely. And really, you've hit the nail on the head with that. No one chooses how to feel attracted to other people. No one chooses how they identify. It is something that is innate. People don't do it for attention. People don't do it for a laugh. In some cases, it can be a huge amount of life upheaval with losing friends and family, and with real serious consequences. People don't do that lightly. They don't do it just for the laugh, And so, yeah, it's like what you said. No one chooses. It just is what it is.
Cool. Well, anyway, let's get back into. We could talk about this forever.
We could.
So tell me, you talked about, like, the narrative for the video games. Tell me about what got you into creating video games, besides the fact that the narrative was missing. Like,
yeah.
Because, as much, like I talk about business a lot, I talk about inner growth a lot, but, like, creating a video game is so beyond me. I'm curious about, like, what got you into it, how you started doing that.
I've loved video games all my life. Growing up with two older brothers, video games were kind of always in the house as a kid. And as I grew up, I found that I loved story-based video games. Things like Final Fantasy and The Legend of Zelda that had kind of big, epic storylines to get invested in. But I never always saw myself in those. And so as I was growing up and wanting to become a part of the video game industry, I wanted to create content that spoke to me as well, in that same aspect. So, yeah, that was what kind of got me into it, and I did a lot of self-studying on Google. I went to school for music, so while I create my own soundtracks, the rest of it is all kind of self-taught and practiced over many, many years, and then finally yeah, I got some startup capital and just kind of went for it.
Cool. Now, you guys, you might hear the heat has just kicked on in my hotel room, so if it sounds a little bit blowy, that's why. Tell me about the startup capital. Like, did you reach out to somebody? Did you go to a bank? What was that all about?
Yeah, I absolutely reached out. There is a program called Futurepreneur Canada that is a program for new immigrants and young people, I think, under the age of 25. It's been a long time since I applied, so I do apologize if I got the details wrong for that.
And it's Futurepreneur Canada?
That's correct,
okay.
Yes. And they allow funding, I think, up to a total of 25,000 Canadian for new businesses. And so I applied for some funds over there and got accepted onto the program when I was a newer immigrant. And it really enabled me to get started a lot sooner than I would have otherwise.
Very
and with
cool.
more resources, totally.
Very cool. So we've heard, we're in Ottawa together for a conference for our job, as I mentioned. We've heard some interesting stories this week about people who immigrated to Canada to create a better life. Like there was the baker that we heard about yesterday where, it was a father and I don't remember where they moved away from, but anyway, moved to Canada and his entrepreneurial journey, which was not necessarily the easiest. And again, not to get into like the heavy political waters, but I find the thoughts and opinions around immigrants, I'm air quoting here. Y'all can't see it when I air quote, but I'm air quoting here. I find the thoughts and opinions around immigrants are a mixed bag and very interesting. And I think it's a bit calmer right now in Canada, but definitely a year ago or 2 years ago when we were facing a phenomenal amount of immigration and refugees coming into Canada, there was a lot of backlash. And I understand it to a degree, and I agree with it to a degree, because I do feel that a country still, their primary focus needs to be to take care of its citizens. And if we can come from a place of abundance to be able to like bring more people in, then definitely. But there's a point at which, it becomes burdensome on a country if we're taking in people that are just causing a lot more stress and strife on the citizens of a country. But that said, my own parents immigrated here from the Netherlands. And so I find it very interesting when people have this idea that, immigrants are taking jobs or immigrants are, they're uneducated or whatever else. Like both my parents are entrepreneurs. They moved here from the Netherlands because they wanted to have a big agriculture farm. The truth is, every single one of us that's here has moved here from somewhere else at some point in the history of the world. And even First Nations people will say, well, we were here first. Well, we all moved around. If you go far enough back, like nobody ever like specifically came from the country of Canada. We've all sort of, if we want to go far enough back to like Pangea and all of that, I find it such a funny thing. And so I think it's cool that Canada has a focus on helping new immigrants to be able to start businesses. Because I think that there is, to some degree, I think there's sort of an uphill battle for people, and I think, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, you've probably had it easier than most. You came over from the UK. You're a white person. So
sure am,
you can't see her, but she's a white person. She's about as white as I am. And so there are certain things that are easier for us because of that versus, say, someone who has an Indian complexion or,
absolutely,
a black complexion or something, or they came from a different country entirely where they really struggle with the language or they have a really heavy accent or something. Mm-hmm. So I'm fascinated that Canada has this program for entrepreneurs, because I think it sort of overcomes some of the struggle of getting a job, but also benefits from the amazing ideas and the spirit that a lot of people have coming over here.
Absolutely. And you're right. I had a lot of benefits coming over. You spoke about people's opinions over the last few years, and I don't ever think those were directed necessarily at Dutch or English or Irish people. Mm-hmm. They were directed at minorities, mm-hmm. which is sad, but a state of what happened.
Right.
But yeah, and going on to one of your other comments, it's important to acknowledge that we are on native land, that it is unceded, and that we are part of the colonization wave that happened. It's important to take those learnings moving forward and take that respect for each other. I think that's the important thing to take from it. And with programs like this, it's helping everyone. It's not discriminating like employers potentially might in regards to race and creed. It's open to every immigrant that has walked through the doors of the airport. And I think that is fantastic.
Cool. It's so, I've had some interesting conversations. Even yesterday I was speaking with someone who moved here from France, and so, like, as I mentioned, my parents are from the Netherlands, and my dad came out to visit a couple weeks ago to Calgary. And there's a store in Calgary called the Dutch Store, and it has all things like from the Netherlands. They ship in all kinds of stuff, and so we're shopping around the store. Every time he comes, he's like, "We got to make it to the Dutch Store." Like he's totally in love. We have to go there. But he made a comment as we're going around the store, and I'm like, "Oh, they have the cheese here, and they have this here, and they have that there," and he's like, "I think my kids are more Dutch than I." And so what I want to touch on here is that. I think, so the issue that I have when there are immigrants or refugees coming in is when they move somewhere new but are determined to push their agenda on another country. Because then to me, if they're like, well, but that's not how it was where we lived, then ignorant or not, my thought is then you should have stayed. Right? Because you moved away because it wasn't conducive or it wasn't safe or it wasn't whatever else. But it's not fair for someone to come here and then say, okay, to the same degree that, way before you or I were ever around, or even a glimpse in like our great-great-grandparents' eyes, it wasn't fair for, the explorers and the adventurers of the past to come here and push our culture either. So I think we need to learn from that. And I think that people from other countries need to be able to learn from that. But I do think it's neat to celebrate and still hold on to our culture.
Absolutely.
So comments like my dad was like, "I think my kids are more Dutch than I," when we all were born and raised in Canada, is a perfect example of that you can hold on to that and still celebrate it without ramming it down someone's throat.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people confuse the difference. I think that some cultures are held more strongly, and that they're visible. I don't think necessarily being English or being Dutch, maybe aside from an accent or two, is something that's necessarily visible in our daily lives. But some cultures have things that are visible. And I think that people can take that negatively. And there's no reason to. It doesn't mean that people aren't integrating. It just means that they're holding on to their customs, but also embracing the new ones. And I think that's fantastic. I think that brings new ideas and new perspectives to everyone. And so, yeah, and I think that applies to business as well, 100%.
Yeah, I think that for all avenues of life, we're stronger for seeing each other's like differences, having intelligent conversations, like we've talked about, intelligent conversations about the differences and about people's experiences. I'm always fascinated by one of the cool things about just being in Ottawa. We've been Ubering around the city a little bit, and so we get to meet people from different countries, and I'm always fascinated a little bit about their journey and like what brought you to Canada. And of course, we're here in the middle of winter, so how do you feel about winter? Because they often come from somewhere that doesn't have winter, and so those are really fun conversations. But it's so. I mean, we work for a global company, which gives us the opportunity sometimes to speak with people from all over the world, all different walks of life, all different experiences, and I find that having that interaction with people from other countries actually makes me not only better at my job, but better at everything that I do. That we kind of get like to see like, oh, okay, this is how they're doing it in Germany, or this is how they're doing it in Brazil, or this is how they're doing it in Australia, or this is how they're doing it in like Tennessee. And so I think that it's because as we gain, like within our own jobs specifically, we gain that knowledge and that insight from someone else, we can actually use that to help someone from another country or someone from, from Canada or from whatever else, and just say like, this is really working and it's really kind of neat, an idea that we maybe haven't thought. And so I think that for all aspects of business, when we can bring in that different perspective, I think that's really powerful.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So tell me, I want to talk about your online business, because I'm Y'all, I'm so excited about this. I think this is really cool. So tell me a little bit about the store, and then I want to hear about like the success that you shared with me recently, because I think it's so mind-boggling and it's very cool.
So recently I decided to open my own online store as a retail business, and I figured that when choosing something to do for an online store, you should pick something that you're passionate about. And for me, it might sound funny, but that's sex toys and BDSM equipment specifically. So I...
And I need to just say, there's there's BDSM and there's BDSM. There's like...
Yes.
an entire range. So if your eyebrows have gone up, I think Katie's is like more to the small letters of BDSM versus the like, oh my goodness, people do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not selling anything particularly potentially dangerous.
Right.
I'm certainly not selling any large rack equipment, anything like that. But stuff that is for maybe new people wanting to try a few things out, or people who have some experience, know what they want, and just need some new tools for their arsenal, I suppose.
Yes. That's a great way of putting it. I love it.
Absolutely. So I have had some great success with it recently. And of course, traditionally in this industry, it's quite hard to advertise because you can't use paid ads on Facebook. You can't use paid ads on Instagram. If you are even going to be on those platforms, you have to be so careful about the content that you put out in case you get posts removed, in case you get banned from the platform entirely. So what I did is I started a Twitter account, and I started to target people in the sex work industry, porn stars, working women, cam girls, anyone that is going to use these products on a regular basis as part of their job. And not only did I develop a wonderful relationship with these women, but yeah, some of them have bought from me. They've retweeted my products. They've told me how excited they are about the business, and it's been great to work with them, honestly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's, I poked through the store, I think it was maybe a month ago. I'm trying to think the last time I looked. And there's this like, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a bra something.
So it's a harness bra.
There you go. Y'all, if I haven't said before that I'm vanilla, I'm so vanilla that I'm like, I don't know what this is. But what was fascinating to me is, so we were having a conversation, a few colleagues and I were having a conversation about this, and somebody mentioned that you could like wear it with a dress or wear it with a t-shirt, and you can like, it's the coolest thing. I'm going to get Katie to give me the link so I can pop in the show notes so you can guys like go see this particular piece. But I do this in business all the time, and I do this even with my design clients, where I'm always looking for like a different way to use things or approach things. And so I think that's kind of cool. Like, it's neat to be able to see some of these products and be able to say like, what else could you do with this, right? Like, how else could you, it doesn't have to be this like taboo thing. We can't talk about it. We can't, whatever.
Absolutely. It's like a sexy night out accessory.
Yeah.
In the same way that you'd wear fancy lingerie.
Yes.
It's great to wear with dresses in exactly the way that you mentioned.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me, so you've been focused mostly on Twitter.
Yes.
And then you had a big win like a couple weeks ago.
I did. There's a particular porn star. Her name is Riley. And she made an order. She retweeted my content. We've almost become friends at this point. Nice. We've had a lovely bit of back and forth. And so a lot of her followers have started engaging with me. And yeah, huge win. Absolutely. I know that she was recently at the AVN Awards, which is like one of the big kind of adult industry award shows in Vegas.
Okay.
And talks about my products there as well, which is just absolutely incredible to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And I want to point out that you didn't go the route of paid ads. You didn't look at this as like a big detriment to the business. You just sort of went like, how can I connect with people? How can I tell people about it in a way that doesn't get me like banned off of Facebook?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, Twitter was really cool that you were able to do that. Do you, I'm working on becoming better, being more on social media because I know that it's a good thing. And I've mentioned on the podcast before that I know that like the work that I'm doing needs to get out, needs to see more people. And in order for that to happen, I need to take a bigger step into it. How much time do you spend like on average, maybe like on a day or over a week or whatever on Twitter? And how do you know, like how do you find people on Twitter? How do you know the kind of person that's like, interested in this kind of thing?
I mean, in terms of time frame, how long is a piece of string? I'm always connected to Twitter because it's about having conversations. And I find that it's the best platform to have a real back and forth with someone with and really get invested in a conversation, be that something on a more serious topic or something just light and fluffy. So, yeah, I mean, I probably spend up to a couple hours a day on it, just checking in every 10 minutes or so while I do other tasks, if someone's responded to me. The beauty of Twitter is that it has that character limit, and you're not going to be crafting a response for 10 minutes unless you just type something out and off you go.
Right.
And in terms of finding the people, have a strong idea of who your customer base is going to be. Look for people like that. Look for people that are already tweeting about this content. Another good thing about Twitter is it has a really robust hashtag system.
Okay.
And really robust search system. So if you search for topics relevant to your industry, to your products, whatever it is you do, you're going to find people that do your sort of content. And you can follow them, but more than follow them, you can actively reach out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be about your business. That's, I think, a common pitfall that people fall into, is that their first tweet is going to be like, hey, I do products XYZ. And people don't necessarily want to be straight advertised to.
I would say not like they don't want to, period.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And one of the first pieces of sales advice I ever had was that people buy things from people they like. And Twitter is a fantastic platform to make a lot of friends.
Oh, that's such a I hadn't thought about it. I think I've tweeted twice in my life. I'm like, I can't keep up with Facebook. Instagram is the closest to sort of something that like appeals to me. I like the way that it puts together. And Twitter, I'm like, Lord help me. It's just, I love the idea of like the aspect of having the conversation. It's a platform that is a bit, I consume content, I think, very differently than a lot of people, which is something that I know has been a bit of a barrier for me in terms of like getting stuff out there, because I'm like, why would anybody want this? Because it drives me crazy when somebody's out there, right? So were you on Twitter before you had the business, or did you specifically go onto Twitter for the business?
I mean, I've been on Twitter just with like my personal account for years. But no, I started a new account specifically for the business. To talk about the sort of BDSM lifestyle with people, to talk about sex work with people, to talk about that aspect of my life and of their lives, which isn't something that I necessarily bring up on the main profile.
Right. Okay, we're gonna pick up our thread of thought here. We had housekeeping pop in. This is the joy of recording in a hotel room.
Of course.
That we have little things like this. So we were talking about Twitter. We were talking about the conversations that you have. I'm really curious, again, because BDSM and the whole like I guess call it porn industry.
Yeah, the sex work industry.
The sex work industry is a very different industry, I suppose, in a way. How do those conversations go? Like in my head, I'm like, are you talking about like the latest toys and how you use them? Are you talking about like, are you asking like, are there, yeah, like how do you broach that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, you have the same conversations you have with any other business person. You empathize with their hard days and their funny experiences of strange customers they may have had. You retweet them and help promote their business. You talk about new photos that they've put up. You build each other up, especially as a predominantly like female business. It's really important to build each other up and be that support network for each other. And I feel really privileged to be a part of that, even though I'm kind of on the fringes of that industry.
Right. And it's so fascinating the way you say that. So if you were paying attention, and if you weren't, I would say go back 30 seconds and listen to it again. What you're talking about is just interacting with people as people.
Absolutely.
We're not judging them for what they do or how they make a living or any of like their interests or anything like that, but just being like, yeah, I celebrate the wins that you have and I hear you when things are tough.
Absolutely. Sex work is work. And being that way, these lessons can apply to any sort of work, whether it's someone that works in an office, runs their own retail store, whatever it happens to be. People have wins and losses. They have interesting or challenging experiences throughout their day. And you can interact with them on that and share in their successes or commiserate their failures and be that support that they might need and just that supportive voice. Just by being there, you're going to get traffic to your site 100%.
Cool. I think that's I think it's good to, because you didn't talk about like going in there and saying like, come check out it drives me crazy when, you post something on Instagram and someone comments and it's like the stock, your feed is so great, DM me if you want to collaborate or follow me for, whatever. Because that's so self-serving. We haven't actually had a conversation. When I do a post on Instagram and I create the actual copy for the post, I'm trying to think of like, how can I have a conversation? How can I share something that I'm thinking or feeling or an insight or something that I had that would be of value to someone else that could maybe start that conversation? And so what you're saying is not go in there and be like, come check out my store, it's amazing. You're saying sort of step alongside them and just be a human being.
Absolutely.
Next to them, right? Like I think if we go, human first and entrepreneur second, that sounds a bit like what your approach is. And
absolutely. I mean, I think like with any business, it's not about you. It's not about you at all. It's about your customer. And even though they haven't bought anything from you, they're a potential customer. And so why wouldn't you want to be a part of their life, get interested in them and have them get to know you? We all know the power that a personal story can have to a business. So why wouldn't you want as many people as you can to interact with you and get to know you? By doing so, they will just naturally become curious about what you do. And it's so organic.
Cool. I love it. So talk to me a little bit about, I've talked about this a little bit before, and I've shared on the podcast before that I've struggled with, being an entrepreneur and then stepping back into having a job. And I think I've talked a little bit about some of the reasons that I stepped into the role that I have now, which is how we met. Can you talk a little bit about because you were saying before we hit record that you're like the video game business that you have was fully supporting you previously. And so can you talk a little bit about making the decision to move to something full-time, what you kind of thought about that, and do you have any, were you like me, where you struggle with that for a little while, where you're just like, people are going to think I'm a failure somehow?
I think I still struggle with it, honestly, because you do feel like a failure, and it's absolutely not. And like your logical mind almost knows that it's not. but sometimes you feel what you feel. The video game industry changed a lot over the past kind of 5 years, specifically with one of the platforms that was responsible for a large portion of my income. I want to say halved over a 2-month time span.
Wow.
And that made things a lot tighter. And so, yeah, the decision to go back into the workforce was difficult. I think by concentrating on your passion is one way to understand that you're not failing. You're still doing the great work that you always did. You're also just paying the bills, and that's okay. It's okay to make side income. Like, my side income is fantastic. If I look at it from that point of view, I'm absolutely succeeding. If my goal is to become a full-time business, again, then I just need to keep up my hustle and generate more income streams. And only by doing that will I get back to that position.
There you go. I think it's, the CEO of the company that we work for has not had an easy journey either. And one of the things that I think is so great about this person is that they, even when we listened to them speak yesterday, they weren't standing on the stage saying like, look at how amazing my life is. I get to drive this amazing car and like I had to, whatever. They shared not in our conversation yesterday, but in different points throughout our time with the company, they've shared a bit of the insight about like what it was like getting started for them, and that they had to borrow money from family, and there's like it was not easy, and it's easy to look at it now and say like, the company's doing so well, and say, well, wow, it must be just so nice to get there. And what I'm fascinated by, and Katie and I both had the opportunity yesterday to meet the CEO, which was still sort of blowing my mind a little bit. This person's kind of a rock star within like the company itself, and so was just how, like, despite the success and despite how well the company's doing, they still hold a vision for what could be better. They have a vision for what the customers need, and where are points of pain for these customers, and how can we make their journey better, easier, faster, less stressful. And I think there's a fine line between holding the vision for continually creating something good without also taking away from the positive impact that we've had. But one of the things that I enjoyed about the story is just that it's a little bit all over. It's had growth pains. It wasn't like an out of the box success. It took a long time to get there in some cases. And so, Katie and I are living examples of the fact that, we were doing our own businesses full time and seeing a reasonable amount of success. But our realities changed a little bit, whether it was something that was within our control or not within our control, and we've made the decision to go from full-time entrepreneur to, having a full-time job and then still doing our business on the side. And I think that, I know these were stories that when I was starting, I would have loved to have heard more of, and so I think that I'm hoping that you guys listening are getting some value out of this, and whatever you're at in your journey, that it's sort of hitting you a little bit, that it doesn't have to be this like, I see on Facebook, I belong to some Facebook groups, and people are always like, I finally got to quit my 9-to-5 and da-da-da, and I always celebrate with them. I always think that's amazing. But if you aren't in that place, or you don't want to, the job that we have, you guys, I'm dumbfounded that like a company can run the way that a company like this runs and treats its employees and its customers so well. Like it's continually boggling my mind. And I think if you're in a position, if you're in a job that you're really enjoying, there's nothing wrong with staying.
Of course there isn't. My favorite example of that is there is a YouTuber called Simply Nailogical.
Say that again.
Simply Nailogical.
Okay.
And she has almost 8 million subscribers on YouTube. She does nail art and has just branched into a general kind of comedy channel. She, in fact, makes the nail polish that I'm wearing today.
Nice.
It's called Hollow Taco. It's amazing.
Okay.
But my favorite thing about her, honestly, is the fact that she's making millions of dollars from advertising revenue on YouTube, from her nail polish line, but she still has a full-time job. She never quit. She's I think a crime statistics analyst.
Okay.
Here in Ottawa, funnily enough. Yeah. But never quit. Millions of dollars as an entrepreneur and still never quit her full-time job.
Cool.
It's okay to have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And still be a resounding success.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, I talked last week about, letting go of some of these beliefs and these old patterns that as a society we've been taught, and I'm guilty of it too, that I still fall into it, like where if I met this person and didn't know this person, I'd be like, I don't understand why you keep your job when you're making millions every year.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like crime statistics is, can you even do that as a business, right? Like it's obviously something that this person's passionate about. They enjoy the work and it's not about paying the bills necessarily at that point. I don't know if they look at it more as like a hobby that they just are lucky enough to get paid for. But I think we need to throw out the traditional idea of like, y'all know, I hate the idea of like 12-hour days and hustle and grind, and I don't believe it works. I don't think that it's healthy. I think that it is a system that is designed to keep us in lack and in frustration and exhausted. And, but it's also okay, even when our businesses become, amazingly successful, that we could still do that. And this is the first job, like the job that we have now is the first time that I've actually sort of thought like, I want to do something in this company. I want to, I haven't quite figured out what that impact is going to be, but where I don't feel like I need to escape, where I'm still super passionate about building the business. I'm super passionate about doing this podcast and still working with my design clients, but I'm also really leaning into the opportunity that having a job and working with a company of the scale that ours is, what that could mean, how I could contribute. And I think that's really nice I'm hoping that you guys are enjoying the fact that we're sort of talking about it. Because I think that needs to be celebrated a bit more. And if you've decided to, if you are an entrepreneur, even if your business is doing really well and you decided to keep your job, I imagine it probably has some similar pushback to stay-at-home moms. I remember a friend of mine, like maybe 5 or 10 years ago, said to me, Amy, I know this is probably something I'm not allowed to say, but I actually really want to be a stay-at-home mom. And, women for decades were pushing against it, that we wanted the opportunity to work. And there are women now who feel like they're being shamed because they actually just want to be at home with the kids. And, am I being anti-feminist? I think we need to celebrate all walks of it. God bless the moms who stay at home all day.
Absolutely. I think that in that aspect, you always run into judgmental people in life. I think that's going to happen as society shifts, almost no matter what you do. I think that all of this is a real lesson to forge your own path and do it the way that suits you and your life best. Yesterday we heard so many stories about different ways to run a business. We heard about businesses that were in operation for almost 10 years before they saw really any modicum of success. We heard about people who are on our staff receiving over 7,000 orders a year and still working for the company and just finding better ways to be efficient and to run that side hustle business without it impacting their day-to-day so much. I think you've got to do it the best way that suits your life, your family, whatever you've got going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. So where can people go to find more about you? If they want to follow you on Twitter, or if they want to go check out your store?
If they want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at, what is it? I forget because it's different from my website name. It is at Dungeon Discount on Twitter.
At Dungeon Discount?
You've got it.
All one word?
You got it.
Okay.
You can find the website at discountdungeonsupply.com.
Okay.
In addition, if you want to find the video game side of things, you can find me at Rezu Media. That's REZU.media.
Rezu.media? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And I'll drop some of the links in the show notes as well. So if you're listening to this somewhere else, head on over to daretobegin.net/blog/53, because this is the 53rd episode. Just kind of blow my mind. Thank you so much for coming, Katie. I really appreciate that you've sat down with me today, and like we've sort of gone all over the map, but I feel like we covered a lot.
Absolutely. We've covered so much. Oh my God. And thank you so much again for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any last thoughts that you want to leave our audience with?
I would say that, just be honest. People buy things from people they like. It's the first thing I heard in sales, and it's the one thing out of all of the sales teachings and knowledge that's out there that has always rung true for me. And that would be my departing thought. I
love it. I love it. And I'm going to add on to that a little bit, that if they don't like you, that's fine. They're not meant to be your customer.
Absolutely.
We're not meant to sell to everybody. So cool.
Absolutely.
Fabulous. Well, I will drop the links that Katie mentioned as well in the show notes. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, because I share some extra things in email. If you have been subscribed, you would have gotten the update that I launched my own store, a bit of an experiment for me, the Enlightened Entrepreneur Shop by Dare to Begin, where I've created some products that are not about the hustle and the grind. And so I would love it if you're interested. You can go check that out, daretobegin.net/shop. We'll get you in. And I know my email subscribers, that when this podcast comes out, that coupon code has gone away, but my email subscribers actually got a 25% discount code for the first 2 weeks. So it's good to be subscribed. So if you want to subscribe, daretobegin.net/blog. We'll get you to the subscribe button. Thank you so much for joining us this week. It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Katie, for joining us this week. And I'm super excited to see you guys on the podcast next week. Bye for now. Are you tired of figuring it out all on your own? Of sitting in overwhelm, knowing that you're not moving forward, but having no idea where or how to start? Are you ready to learn effective, profit-supporting strategies for your business so that you can finally earn the money you desire and step into the freedom that you're working so hard to create? If so, I invite you to join me inside the Launchpad. You'll get instant access to free training designed to meet you where you are right now and propel you forward toward the dream that you hold in your mind. It's time to make a powerful move toward your future. Time to step up and serve the people who desperately need your help. Let's not keep them waiting any longer. Today is the day. Join the Launchpad now. Just go to daretobegin.net/the Launchpad and sign up. Your success is inevitable. Now, let's launch it.